Hello, and welcome to Bry's Book and Film. The film I'm going to be talking about today is Scum from 1977. There's two versions of Scum. You've got the 1977 Play for Today, which the BBC promptly banned, and then you've got the 1979 film. It was remade because the BBC decided that the original Play for Today was entirely too much. It packed in too much incident in too short a space of time. You've got, you've got just general violence. It's set in Scum is set in a Borstal, a youth offenders institution named after the first Borstal across town in Rochester here. I think it was 1902 when the first Borstal Young Offenders Institution was made in Borstal, and it then became known as the Borstal Scheme. In the olden days, they'd say, "You'll end up in Borstal, lad, if you don't change your ways." So anyway, so we follow the tale of, it starts off with an inmate called Davis being chased down by some prison guards in a car across the field, and they capture him and take him to Borstal. Davis, the inmate, has run away from an open Borstal and regrets his decision, almost immediately. They're then taken to the Borstal induction. There's Carlin, played by Ray Winstone, and Davis, and a young black inmate called Angel. There's no first names in Scum. It's just Carlin, Angel, and Davis. Angel, he's not liking it because he's black and there's a lot of racism and prejudice towards him. Carlin, he is a hard case from a previous Borstal that assaulted an officer, and has been sent to the really bad Borstal. So the prison guards discover that he's assaulted a fellow officer somewhere else, and they give him a bit of a roughing up. They give him a bit of a rough time, beat him up basically. Then let's just check my notes. Then we discovered that there is a prison daddy, a wing daddy, called Pongo Banks. Banks is the only one with a first name, Pongo. And Pongo has two little henchmen, Richards, who's played by the legendary Phil Daniels, and Eckersley, who's played by Ray Burdis. The three of them embark on terrorizing the younger inmates, racially bullying and beating up the black inmates. Surprisingly, you don't see any Asian inmates. You see black and you see white. There are no black prison guards either. None of the screws are black men. The screws are all middle-aged men, and they'll wear, blazers and trousers, shirts and stuff. They don't have a set uniform like a regular prison would. So you've got Ray Winstone playing Carlin. He's the main man. John Blundell plays Pongo Banks. Phil Daniels plays Richards. David Threlfall in this version plays Archer, who is on a passive-aggressive, peaceful protest to inconvenience the guards. For instance, he doesn't wear shoes because he's a vegetarian. He doesn't have meat because he's a vegetarian. And he doesn't go to church because he's an atheist. So every week, a prison officer is assigned to look after Archer because he simply won't go to church with the other lads who are not saints, are they? And Ray Burdis plays Eckersley, and Patrick Murray plays Dugan. Patrick Murray, most famous, let's be fair, for his role as Mickey Pierce in Only Fools and Horses. That's where you'll know him from. It's the voice. It's his voice that gives him away. If you was in a room blindfolded and you heard Dugan in Scum, you'd know straight away who it was. So Carlin arrives. He discovers that Pongo Banks is the daddy of the wing and he's in charge, and he goes around terrorizing and extorting money from the younger, weaker inmates. He postures around and, without saying anything to Carlin, lets Carlin know that he's in charge and what he says goes. There's tension mounting between the two of them because Carlin is a genuine hard case and Pongo Banks is just a weak, pathetic bully who's only, he just struts around, giving it the big one, because he's got his little firm with him, Eckersley and Richards. Richards is a bit more, whose nickname is Slasher. He's a bit more hands-on, a bit more violent than Eckersley. Eckersley is more of your lookout man. Sort of whistle scroop, and then they'll finish what they're doing. There is a scene where Eckersley lends his radio to Davis. Davis has been given a single cell, as has Angel. And Eckersley says, "Do you want to borrow my radio?" And Davis says, "No, thanks." He says, "Well, I'll leave it here." And he said, "And if you don't want it, give it back to us later." Eckersley then promptly goes to Mr. Sands. Is it Mr. Sands? There's two versions. He goes to see the prison officer anyway and says, "Look, he's stolen my radio." And the prison guard goes in and gives him what for? Banks and Richards then decide they're going to attack Carlin because Carlin's been put in the dorm because he's a hard man. And Banks and Richards attack him in the night in his sleep and just beat him up, basically. Then Carlin's put on report because he's got these bruises and these marks and swellings on his face, black eye and the rest of it. So he gets out of that. Then we've got the infamous snooker ball in a sock scene because Carlin decides he's going to strike while the iron is hot. What you don't see is the other inmates sort of collaborating to tell Carlin where Banks is. Banks is upstairs. He's having a wash and a shave and sorting himself out. So in the recreation room, Carlin gets a sock and he gets a couple of snooker balls from the snooker table and then promptly gives Richards the cosh right round the ear hole, kicks his head in, knocks him out, does him over. Eckersley's running off to grass and Carlin says, "Don't, get back, sit down." And Eckersley, being the weak coward that he is, does as he's told because a bigger power has come in now. Carlin then runs out up the stairs. One of the other inmates in the dorm, he's sort of combing his hair and he sort of gives the gesture that Banks is in the washroom. Carlin goes in, kicks his head in, really gives him the horoscope there, really gives him the good news. Takes over the wing and becomes the wing daddy. This film does. There's a lot of, let's see my notes here, toxic masculinity, and it is toxic as well. There's a lot of racism, toxic masculinity and dominance over weaker, younger inmates. The failure, they're not there to be rehabilitated, they're just there to be punished. These lads are not there to be fixed. And you do see the cycles of power. So Banks was in charge. Mr. Sands, the horrible prison officer, was in charge of Banks. And Banks was in charge of the younger inmates, shaking them down, giving them a generally hard time, being an awful person. Mr. Sands is just, he's awful. John Judd played Mr. Sands, and he's awful and terrible. Mr. Sands is awful. Played to perfection by John Judd. In fact, all of the other prison officers are played to perfection because they are awful individual people. Then we get on to the infamous greenhouse scene. Now, the greenhouse scene in Scum is where Davis is gang raped, basically, by a two or three of the other inmates, bigger, stronger, more dominant inmates. They're not as high on the food chain as Carlin or Banks. You know, it's a strong film. You can see if you watch it. I had to buy it on Amazon Prime. I had to buy it on Amazon and then sync my Amazon account to my Prime account so I could watch it. I've got the 1979 version. I had to buy that as well. But you can see the power and abuse. So they're bigger and stronger than Davis, so they're going to have their way and do what they want and dominate him with their toxic masculinity. You know, you can see why the BBC banned it and locked it away. I've got the date here. It was the 27th of July, 1991, and it was aired on BBC Two. And I actually stayed up with my finger on the record button of a VHS video player, ready to record it, because I said, this is the only time you're going to be allowed to see it. It's too strong. It's too much. There was a man, and he was sitting in like a film vault, and he had one of them big old-fashioned metal film reels in his hand. And he said this film was deemed as being too strong, too much happens in too short a space of time. But people, if you speak to them, they would, who were in the Borstal, would probably say, yeah, that's pretty much it. Not maybe so much with the rape, but, you know, the sexual abuse, the toxic masculinity, the older, bigger, physically stronger inmates dominating. So I recorded it. I've got it on VHS somewhere in the house. It is a good film, written by Roy Minton, directed by Alan Clarke. It's got a 78-minute runtime. There is horrific racism, which is it's appropriate for the time, I suppose you could say. It's still not nice to hear. It's not good. I often wonder if the actors that portray these people using this kind of language get uncomfortable using it. They must do. I would. It is terrible, especially against Angel, because he's just a young black kid. Turns out he was a car thief. Mr. Sands is keen to, because early on in the film, Banks and Richards, with Eckersley as the lookout, go into Angel's cell and beat him up and chuck all his stuff all over the place. And then, oh, abracadabra, Mr. Sands appears. Mr. Sands always appears just after something has happened. Oh, here we are. So Carlin takes over the wing. Then he has to fight the daddy of the other wing, who is a young black fella as well. He's a black guy. There's a lot of racism to do with that little exchange. Dugan sets up the meet. He's like the sort of runner go-to in the prison. And Danny John Jules, who you'll know from other things, of course, but he played the cat in Red Dwarf. He makes an uncredited appearance as one of the lookouts in the boiler house when Carlin goes in. The two lads at the door are not expecting Carlin to walk back out. They're expecting their baldy bloke to walk back out. That's what he's known as, baldy, because he's bald. So, but anyway, so Carlin takes over the prison. You know, there is the moment where Carlin takes one of the younger inmates to be his missus, as he calls him. You can be my missus. Yeah, although that's not in the 1979 film version, because Carlin is keen to point out he's not a homosexual, but every hole's a goal, I suppose. So, yeah. So the officer abuse and cruelty, they do play a game in the gymnasium. It's like a form of bulldog, I suppose. Anybody of a certain age that's British of a certain age would know the game bulldog. To me, it doesn't seem so much like a game of bulldog that I used to play in school in the playground. It seems more like a game of black lads down there, white lads over there. Let's beat each other up. You know, the PE teacher, he says, right, the rules. no punching in the face, no kicking in the ghoulies, and no biting, and everything else goes. I don't remember playing that game of Bulldog as a child, but it is a good film. It is hard hitting. The racism obviously isn't pleasant, but it's of its time. It's appropriate to demonstrate just how awful and dreadful the prison officers actually are. So anyway, so Davis decides he's depressed, he's been raped, he's not had a good time. He rings the night buzzer to get the prison guard to come and see him, who just gives him a telling off and says, you ring that bell again for no reason, just because you're up here snivelling, and you'll be down the punishment block getting filled in again. So Davis decides he's going to cut his wrists and end his life, which he successfully does. While he's in the throes of this, he buzzes the buzzer, and I think it's Mr. Greaves, the security guard, just ignores it. The next morning, they're all turning out. They have to stand outside their doors. Davis hasn't come out because he's dead. And Mr. Sands is his usual sympathetic self. He goes down to give Davis a telling off and then sees the awful state of the room, locks all the lads back up. They deal with that. And right at the end, there is a riot. They decide they're going to protest because Davis has died and nothing was done and nobody's interested. So Carlin instigates a riot. Mr. Sands goes to Carlin and says, you got to eat. These lads are going to follow you, sort of thing. You better eat. And Carlin, he just, the wind goes up in the air, basically. The wind goes up in the air and a riot ensues and they tear the place to pieces. The young lads tear the place to pieces. They've had enough of being bullied and molested and tortured and terrorized on a constant basis. So the wind goes up in the air and, the next thing you know, you see it's Carlin, Archer, and I think it's a fella called Meakin, who's played by Alan Igban, another great British actor that's hugely underrated, being dragged, bloodied and beaten half to death and thrown in a punishment cell and left. And then we've got the very, very end scene is the prison governor with his, I would say cohorts, but his staff on the steps, and they're looking at this sea of lads. And the governor's saying, well, these accidents will happen, we can't have any more outbursts. And, the fact that Mr. Greaves could have prevented that is just by the by. So, but that's how it ends. It's a tour de force. It is a good film. It's a fast moving film. Now, what would I give this on the coffee cup scale? Do you know, I think I'm going to give this film 4 coffee cups, 4 hot coffee cups, and a couple of custard creams. We needed because it's not quite 5, but it's a bit more than 4. It's like a 4.5. So 4 hot coffee cups and some custard creams. That's a good rating because as everybody knows, custard creams dipped in coffee is the best combination there is. So 4 hot coffee cups and some custard creams. That's how good it is. Scum, 1977. Roy Minton wrote it. Alan Clarke directed it. It's a good film. Give it a watch. Let me know what you think in the comment box below. If you've seen it, feel free to comment. If you haven't seen it but you want to watch it, feel free to comment. If you don't want to do either of those things and can't be bothered, then don't worry about doing anything at all. But if you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Take it easy and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.